Brady Quinn, step right up. All right, you are the face of Ohio. All right, you are the pride and joy of Dublin/Columbus, Ohio. A lot of people don't know this, but I call it the 614.
Yeah.
You know, but again, you are representing that fine state. It's a beautiful state, and it's also a state that's looking for some change. Because a state representative from Ohio by the name of Josh Williams has proposed something called the OHIO Sportsmanship Act, which would, quote, prohibit planting of a flagpole and flag at the center of the Ohio Stadium football field on the day of a college football game. And that is how you respond to a loss at home to your arch rival. You go ahead and try and get a law put in place to where they wouldn't be allowed to plant their flag at the Horseshoe ever again. This is unbelievable that this is a real story. And this is actual.
I'm sorry to any Ohio State fans, any folks and residents in the state of Ohio that disagree with me. But this is the softest thing that has ever been proposed in a state legislature across the country. Okay, and that includes a lot of soft things that have been proposed in other states.
Yeah.
We lost a football game. We don't need to make policy, all right, after losing a football game. And spare me the angle and the political talk of, well, it's about keeping our law enforcement safe. Are you serious? I mean, they use pepper spray on these guys who are on a field after a game. They lost a game. Can we stop? I mean, look, I don't know Josh Williams. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I kind of went down that wormhole, and he's got a lot of other great policies. He's trying to help the state of Ohio. Focus on that. This is not an issue that we need to stand on our soapbox and start preaching like, oh, this is the problem with our country. This is the problem with Ohio, is all this flag planting going on. It's a rampant issue. No, it's not. Focus on something where there's people who need help and other issues in the state and across the country if other states start doing this crap, which, mind you, this will be the first state, I think, that's doing this. Let's not be a first mover on some sort of policy that's this soft. Like, this is, I mean, if you want Michigan to live rent-free in your head every single year, like, this is the way to do it. Where you lose a game and you have to create policy because a team tried to plant their flag into a turf field that's not even possible.
Yeah, you can't even plant it.
Like it's the whole thing is so stupid.
You're sticking it
I
on the
cannot
surface.
believe. I don't care if it's at the state level. I just cannot believe a politician would then try to make legislation office or propose it. It is ridiculous. And again, spare me the safety of the police. It wasn't a safety issue for the police. All right? This, if anything, should have been controlled by the coach, or both coaches in that case, Sharon Moore and Ryan Day. Like, you had 60 minutes to prove it on the field. Once that ends, dude, go in the locker room. Go figure out how you can try to win next year, or go try to figure out how you can try to go in the playoff, win a national championship. Because your opportunity to defend that turf just died.
Dang.
For the fourth straight year. It is the softest thing I can recall in my lifetime.
Is this the worst that they've handled a loss to Michigan in Columbus? I know there haven't been a lot outside of the last 4 years, but is this the worst?
I mean, people will ridicule me for saying this, but I would say this is an example of why you would make that case. But also, there wasn't even like a reaction. I think the thing that bothered me from the fan base is, like, typically, like when I was growing up, and then again during the John Cooper era, like if they won, people would be partying and be excited, even though they didn't. That's why John Cooper got fired. But when they lost, they'd be like burning cars. I mean, burning couches out there on the streets down on campus. Like, it was a scary deal. And I'm not advocating for that in any way, but there was this frustration, this anger, this emotion that came out. What's sad about now is it's almost like Ohio State fans have resorted to the fact of, yeah, we just can't beat them. We just, it's like a little bit sad and depressing. Like, they're just, nowadays, they're just better than us, I guess. Like,
Dang.
There's almost like no emotion attached to it. Not saying they're okay with it, but almost as if it's not like the anger like it used to be. And I guess we'll find out how ticked off Ohio State is. I mean, I again grew up in an era where kids were coached different, they were taught different. Mickey Marotti, who's there now at Ohio State, was my strength coach. And he was the type where if you had lost like this, I could only imagine how he would have handled things back then. Because if we had lost like that to end the season, yet we still had a shot to go play for a national championship, he might have had us in there the next day at 6 a.m. and running until we puke, or lifting and, you know, like squatting or leg pressing like 600 pounds for sets of 40. Like, you go until you can't, I'll strip off a plate. You go until you can't, I'll strip off another plate. And I remember those days training with him thinking to myself, like, dude, I want to give up. I want to give in. But that was his whole thing, is he was pushing you past your breaking point. I don't know that you can coach these kids like that anymore. And I think it's part of the problem, because I think they might be still training like that in Michigan. At least it seems that way. I mean, you guys tell me I'm crazy, but because I've got a different perspective, because I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. But this is the softest thing I've ever seen happen around this rivalry and around sports.
It just makes it so much worse. Like, it makes everything, because then it looks like not only did you lose, but you couldn't even handle it in a way that is representative of how much success the program has had. You're just accepting the L, and then you're crying about it afterwards and saying, you're not allowed to plant our flag here. It's terrible. Like, it's just the whole thing. And that's why watching it, when you're asking when we talked about the game on Monday, and it was like, I don't know, could you tell on TV that the stadium was starting to turn? Like, oh yeah. Like, you could see that this one felt bigger than some of the other ones, because I think they went into that game thinking, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. I mean, look, we're 3 touchdown favorites. I mean, this is our year. We're going to get our revenge. We're on our way. And like, the longer the game went on and the closer the game was, you just felt like Michigan's going to make enough plays to win that game. And it was like everybody in the stadium got the same sense. And there was nothing they could do about it except put a law in place to try and make sure that you can't plant your flag there. And then Sharon Moore's at a Michigan basketball game doing the flag planting sign on the big screen when they go to him. Like, he's totally embraced this whole thing while everybody else is, you know, trying to put in legislation.
LaVar,
shocked.
You know what the worst part is I think they made it a felony too.
They're trying to make it a felony,
which is even more absurd. I mean, are you really, do you really care that much about it? You want to put this on some kid's record who's a college? I mean, for real? You would have put a felony on his record for planting a flag? You know how ridiculous that is?
I was thinking to myself, all right, you have a fight ensue and a fight break out. Like, you're more worried about the flag getting planted than there being, you know, physical altercations that take place. And listen, I grant, I know that they're saying, okay, it places the police in harm's way or whatever it is that they're saying. But I think that the premise of what this is all about is it's all off. I mean, if anything, I would say if you think about competition and what competition has always represented, and you get back to the basics of what was created, you created sports clubs to be able to compete against other sports clubs. Your team consisted of people from that place. Right now, everything has evolved, it's changed, and we've gotten so far away from what the origin of sports represented. But if you really go back to the origin of what sports represented, if you played against Pittsburgh, the college, you know where those kids were from? Pittsburgh. If you played against somebody from Ohio State, you know where they were from? Ohio. And so when you think about it, we're saying we want to see if Ohio is better than Pittsburgh or whatever, fill in the blanks. You want to see who has the better club when you compete. So in essence, you're basically saying, if we come in and we play you in Ohio and we're from Pittsburgh, if we want to plant a Pittsburgh flag, so to speak, in Ohio, it's because we came in and we beat you, right? Pick kids from this place came in and beat the kids from that place. That's what sports represents. It's what it has always represented. Now it's decentralized, and it's people that come from all over the place and they play in one place, but they still, the premise of your Ohio State, that represents Ohio. That's still there. And so to me, when I look at somebody trying to make this a law, it kind of defeats the purpose of what really true competition represents, because to say that planting a flag is unsportsmanlike is, I would say that's inaccurate. In fact, it's almost sportsmanlike to say that they should be unimpeded from planting the flag because they, for the day, for that moment in time, conquered that piece of land. Just like the number one podium spot. It's like, all right, are you gonna get mad at the person who won the gold medal because they went up and stood on the gold medal post at number one on that track in that stadium? No, you're not, because your reward for winning is to stand above the rest of everybody else that lost. So to me, it's just another further symptom of our society and of our culture. Everybody gets a medal for participation and all this other stuff. Like, if I were Ohio and I were the people that saw this being the representation of who we are, I would be outraged. I would actually want people to know that we're not that soft. This is not who we are. This is not what we represent. I don't know who did this or put this evil on us, but this is not representation of us. Because to me, you're basically saying we would rather have a law that says we're not willing to compete. We're telling you and we're letting you know we're not willing to compete. And we want you to be penalized for beating us and being better than us. That's what they're saying.
What a bad look.
We want a law for you being better than us. So I just, I'm glad it wasn't Pennsylvania. I'm glad it wasn't Pittsburgh that did this. And to the lawmakers who are pushing for this to be a felony and even put this in taxpayers, put that in the dossier and put it in the meetings and all that stuff. Shame on you.
Hey, if Ohio State loses to Tennessee, which wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, but they lose at home to Tennessee, is Ryan Day in trouble? Like, how real?
I keep going back to the timing of all of it. It would be really tough, in my opinion, to move on from him at that point in time in the season. I mean, you'd have to have someone lined up that you feel really good about, that the fan base would feel good about too. And I don't know. I mean, blown out, one thing. I mean, maybe the way you lose matters, but I don't know. It would be so difficult. It'd be so difficult, I think, to make the move at that point. And you kind of wonder how the portal will be impacted by it. I mean, who are you going to hire? People will be like, Vrabel will do it. I'm like, no, man. I mean, he probably would rather go to an NFL team. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'd rather go back to Ohio State. I have no idea. But if it's not Ryan Day, like, who are you hiring? I mean, Urban Meyer's already made a statement saying he's not coming back. So, I mean, why make the change just to make the change because you had a loss? Like, usually you want to invest into the coach, figure out how to turn this thing around, how to figure out how to maximize the talent and potential of a team that reportedly spent $20.5 million on the roster. That's why I would invest my time in. Surely not policy at the state level to make flag planting a felony. I mean, there was actually a bill to, I believe in the state of Ohio, to allow schools to directly pay student athletes NIL. That was one of the things that I believe was introduced and I would assume would be passed with everything coming, which would make things easier for Ohio State to compete in the NIL world. That is legislation that if you really want to help out the Buckeyes, that's something that matters. That's something that's significant. This whole flag planting thing is an absolute joke. And it's something, if you're a politician and this is like something, this is my bill. It's like, well, This is it's gonna be hard for people who want to support you for how this looks. All right, I'm just saying.
It's terrible.